Over the past several years, we've heard that deplatforming works. These leftist journalists who advocate for banning people keep saying, see, they're gone. Deplatforming the person made their ideas go away. Because these people live on Twitter. They don't understand how ideas work, and they don't understand that you can't just disappear people. Banning them is the equivalent of covering your eyes. Their ideas don't go away, and the mob is still at the gates with pitchforks. We're now hearing that the online far right is moving underground, downloading apps like Signal, CloutHub, MeWe, Telegram, Rumble. Signal is an encrypted communications app used by anybody concerned about privacy and security. I recommend it. It has nothing to do with the right going deeply underground. It has to do with you stomping them underground and them still doing what they want to do. In fact, all this does is make everything worse. What's that I hear? The left saying, but look, we deplatformed these prominent right-wing figures and it worked and everything's back to normal. Were you sleeping on January 6th when people stormed the Capitol? What happened to all the deplatforming you did? Oh, maybe they'll say it's in spite of the the platforming still helped. It would have been worse if we didn't. Okay. Alex Jones was still there. You banned him, removed him from everything. And then all he did was create a proprietary platform, his own version of YouTube, and he gets tons of views on it. He made a video calling for peaceful protest. He's seen at the Capitol. Now, mind you, I believe the video is him saying, don't go inside the building. The point is, Alex Jones is still prominent among many of these individuals. In fact, I did 2 podcast episodes with him. He's still there, his ideas still exist, and he still pulls in a tremendous amount of influence. He's still selling supplements. You did nothing to stop him. The only thing they do by sweeping everything under the rug or trying to stomp it underground is make it so they can't influence people anymore, and they make it so that they have no idea what these people are doing. I'm sick of talking about it. I really am. You know, Maybe just in the next few days, I'll focus on stories that have nothing to do with this. The media, I believe, is getting desperate. They've built up an enterprise off of Orange Man Bad. You want to talk about the culture war and the 2 main factions that I believe were the belligerents? It's Trump and the media. Choose your side. I think the media was awful and Trump wasn't that bad. That, I think, easily defines where people will put you. Who do you trust more? Now, I'm not saying I trust Trump completely like many of his most ardent supporters did, but I knew for a fact that they had lied about so much having to do with Trump. Now, Trump certainly lied as well often. Come on, he's in politics. But it was just so egregious the amount of lying they would do about the guy. It was insane. The left believes the media is telling the truth and that Trump is the one who lies all the time. And that's the game. Now, as they seek to ban and silence and shut everyone down, all that's happening is that these individuals are finding other ways to communicate, creating underground networks. Well, that's what Axios says, going underground. They nuked Parler. They are doing everything in their power to crush these ideas and this ideology. And the scary thing is, it's all based on a lie that all of these people are white supremacists or far right or what other nonsense. And the more they do it, the more they radicalize people. I want you to take a look at this story from the Washington Post. Talk radio owner orders conservative hosts to temper election fraud rhetoric. They say Cumulus Media, which employs some of the most popular right-leaning talk radio hosts in the United States, has told its on-air personalities to stop suggesting that the election was stolen from President Trump or else face termination. A Cumulus executive issued the directive on Wednesday, just as Congress met to certify Joe Biden's election victory, and an angry mob of Trump supporters marched on the Capitol, overwhelmed police, and briefly occupied the building, terrorizing lawmakers and leading to the deaths of 5 people. We know what happened. Take a look at this quote. "We need to help induce national calm now," Brian Phillips, executive vice president of content for Cumulus, wrote in an internal memo, which was first reported by Inside Music Media. Cumulus and its program syndication arm, Westwood One, will not tolerate any suggestion that the election has not ended. The election has been resolved and there are no alternate acceptable paths. Memo reads, "If you transgress this policy, you can expect to separate from the company immediately." Boy, am I glad I never signed with this company. They do a lot of the top podcasts. And let me just first say, Brian Phillips is right. We do need to help induce national calm. Well, whatever that means. I can't tell people what they can or can't do, and what they choose to do is entirely on them. I don't view myself as a broadcast arbiter of truth, someone who dictates to the masses. Quite the contrary. I've always said I'm just some dude complaining on the internet, and that's still how I see myself, which is why it's so strange, to be completely honest. When I have all of these lefties coming at me and accusing me and writing about me, and I'm just like, I just turn on the camera and talk about my feelings and what I think. And, I want to better understand what's happening and give my thoughts and opinions. I suppose there are many people who are like that, but I guess many who work in broadcast media traditionally, like at radio stations and at these big news organizations, view themselves as the dictators to the masses. I don't view myself that way. So it's probably why, people are going to give me thumbs down on a lot of videos. I got a ton of thumbs down on my video yesterday, and I had a lot of people complaining, and it's like, dude, I'm going to tell you what I think. If you don't like it, well, that's too bad. I don't know what else to tell you. I'm a dude who turns on a camera and just talks about what I think, what I see, what I'm learning, what I think might happen, and how I feel about it. Now, I personally think right now it is imperative that everybody calm down, because we do not want... Look, China is growing out of control. They're planning beaching drills for Taiwan, and we have to cross our fingers and hope that in the event of some kind of Chinese military incursion into Southeast Asian territories that are not theirs, the United States can help keep the world stable in that capacity. But if we crack now, then they can just do whatever they want. Now, I think Biden's got problems, and I think there's a bunch of people who are going to be in government who will praise and maybe help China. But I don't know. I worry about what happens if we get a true conflict, a true civil war, and we don't want people dying. We don't want the chaos. But I feel like because of the media's obsession and desperation, it's going to happen. I want to show you this thread from James Lindsay, a very astute individual. He is one of the foremost experts on wokeness. James Lindsay, referencing the story, says, they've become so accustomed to just manufacturing whatever public sentiment that they want that they don't realize that there are limits to the magic of alchemy. And with hundreds of millions of people around the world, the spell is already broken. He references the quotes I just read about inducing calm. James says, this is no small point here, by the way. They literally believe they can manufacture, by engineering the discourses, whatever public sentiment and mood they want. They think they can induce national calm by censoring people and tailoring what people hear and say. It's absolutely crucial to understanding what's happening now to understand the idea of, quote, discourse engineering, where they believe they can do social engineering by changing what people talk about and quite clearly achieve virtually any end with it. Yesterday, I made a video and it got, I think, like 20% or so thumbs down. Typically, my videos throughout, the past several years have been getting 99% thumbs up, even when I was critical of Trump. But now there's a break. I've been getting around 92% thumbs up. So, look, much respect to the resilient individuals who disagree with me and still watch. And there are many people who disagree with me and gives me a thumbs down and have been calling me a sellout or insulting, whatever. Listen, I don't control what you think, and you don't have to listen to what I have to say. I don't think that what I do is causing these things to happen. In fact, quite the contrary. People come to my content because many probably already agree. And when they don't, they leave. I can't tell you or anyone else what to think or believe. Maybe I'll say some things and you might say, that's a good point. I didn't consider it, and maybe you'll say, Tim's so dumb. I can't believe he said that. And then you'll leave. So no, I don't believe that I have the ability to induce anything. I can ask politely. I can say, I think this is important and I hope you agree. And many people will say no. And they tell me as such in comments and in emails. And it's your right to do so. Perhaps these people in media do not understand what the internet and the information age revolution has brought us. More egalitarianism, I suppose. You don't control what people think. So therein lies the big problem. Sweep it under the rug, they say, and hope no one notices the rug is extremely lumpy and there's actually some bodies under there. They think they can just induce calm. That's right. If all of these people just tell everyone to do it, they'll listen. No, I'll tell you what would happen. If Ben Shapiro went on his podcast and said something like, you must do X and this must happen now, and then just gave this, a contrary opinion or an opinion that defied the facts, people would just say no and they would leave. This is the big difference between most people who are watching content like this and the mainstream media. I think what people need to realize about the content I do is that I get corrected all the time because there are people who actually read the news and then watch my content to get more of a view on what else. So I'll give you an example. Fake news comes out about Trump. They hear it's fake news. They want to know more. They come to my channel and there I am breaking down why it's fake news. And they say, interesting. That's what I thought. I looked it up and I saw it was fake news. The mainstream media people, they just watch the mainstream media and assume it's all true. They don't Google search. They're not fact checking. And the reason, I've talked about this many, many times. When you go on YouTube, you have to choose to search for a topic. When you watch the mainstream media, you just listen to whatever they tell you is happening. Which brings me to the next and most dangerous aspect of what the media has become. You can't induce anything. The people that you think you are stopping are still talking. They're not going to stop talking. But let me show you the mainstream media. New York Times writes how Trumpism may endure. The Confederacy built a lasting myth of victory out of defeat. Trump and his followers may too. Oh no, Trump's going to endure. What do we do? If Trumpism keeps going, The Atlantic, how MAGA extremism ends. If Trump keeps losing, the risk of future violence will abate. Oh, I'm so relieved. Trump keeps losing. It's going to finally stop. Oh, thank my lucky stars. That New York Times story had me really worried that Trump would endure, but then the Atlantic said it would be over. So, oh no, the CNN is writing Trump is over, not so fast. What do you mean not so fast? Do you mean he's still here? He's coming back? But wait, the USA Today says Trump can't be silenced even by Facebook and Twitter, but we can prevent another Trump. Oh, it's finally over. You get the point? They'll write whatever they have to write if it's going to get traffic. They will write endless garbage that contradicts itself. You read this stuff and you are fed this stuff and you have no cohesive, logical thought pattern. You're simultaneously holding fractured views about the end of Trump and the beginning of Trump and how Trump can't be silenced and we're going to prevent another Trump, but Trump isn't over, not so fast. Which is it? Maybe banning all social media really is the answer. But I don't think so. I don't really believe that because the cat's out of the bag. The technology exists. The blockchain is here. Mesh networks exist. There's an app you can get that allows you to turn on Bluetooth and then create a mesh network communications. You might have no Wi-Fi, no cell service, but the Bluetooth transmits data between all the other phones and it works. It's really quite incredible. I was on a cruise once and there was no cell service and no Wi-Fi. And so everybody was told when you were boarding to download this app and turn on Bluetooth. You could then send a message to someone, and here's what happens. You've got 4 people, persons 1, 2, 3, and 4. Person 1 is at one side of the cruise. Person 4 is at the other side. And then in the middle is person 2 and 3. If I want to message the person at the other side of the boat, I send the message. The Bluetooth jumps from person to person in between until it finally finds the intended recipient. Brilliant technology. You cannot crush ideas. They're bulletproof. They can't be arrested. They can't be censored. They can't be silenced. Now you can censor the people. You can try your hardest to crush the ideas, but even in China, it doesn't work. Many pretend it doesn't exist. Many hide, but the ideas persist. Now, the authoritarians can crush dissent. They can use military might and force, but in today's day and age, you cannot destroy ideas. Now, I'll tell you, they sure wish they could. They're probably wishing that people just didn't know. Ignorance is bliss, and that's true. If the only thing you knew was the Great Reset, you'd love it. If you're born into it, you'd love it. And that's where I think we are heading. And that's what they're hoping to accomplish. It's why they're trying to fracture the family. It's why left-wing activists, they want to fracture the family. They want to change the curriculum at schools because they need to indoctrinate youth. It's quite eerie because there was someone else who talked about doing that, a really nasty guy, beyond nasty, probably the nastiest, one of the nastiest, talking about World War II Germany. This guy was a monster. And we recently heard there was some woman giving a speech, some Republican, where she said, I'm not even going to repeat the words she said. You get the point. They want to indoctrinate kids. They want those kids to grow up knowing this as their only reality because ignorance is bliss. It's almost like the allegory of the cave, I suppose. It also reminds me of Stargate. You ever see the movie Stargate? Back in the 90s. So the movie is basically about people. They find this machine that teleports them to another world. They encounter a group of people who are, let's just say, I don't know if primitive is the right word, but undeveloped culture. And they were basically slaves. At one point, someone tries drawing to show them a symbol, and they freak out because writing was forbidden. By restricting the ability to transfer knowledge, they kept these people as slaves. Harriet Tubman also has a very famous quote, "I have freed many slaves, and I would have freed many more if only they knew they were slaves." It's an interesting idea about knowledge and access to knowledge. Maybe it's wrong. Maybe it creates chaos. I don't know. But I happen to fall on the side of, I believe people have a right to know. The public has a right to access information and to understand how the world works. But the authoritarians don't. They're worried about a future where the world is out of control, resources are being stripped, bare, the planet is being stripped bare, and then we ultimately destroy ourselves. That's the world they see. And I understand it. And I respect their concerns, but I don't respect authoritarianism, and I don't expect the idea that they are morally superior to anyone else. Thus, this isn't the inherent problem. The people who think they're smarter than you and should control you and your ideas and restrict your ability to do things might be wrong. It just so happens that many of these people are hypocrites who call for these COVID lockdowns and then go out and party themselves. So why would I trust they are right? That's why you don't let these people have power, because they're corrupt. A decentralized system is substantially better than a centralized one. I'll be the first to admit, even if it results in people giving me a thumbs down, that we are facing serious challenges on this planet. People have told me, Tim, the overpopulation thing is a myth. Maybe, I don't know. What I do know is I have personally gone and witnessed some of the destruction we have seen to the environment. I have gone and done interviews and talked with scientists and looked at the plants that are causing the dead zones in the water. Maybe the videos aren't real. Maybe it's all propaganda. Maybe you can believe what you want to believe. But at a certain point, you've got to choose what you trust to be true. We had a PhD pathologist on the IRL podcast who said resources are being depleted. Insect populations are collapsing. If that's true, we're in very serious trouble, and we need to do something about it. And I respect that. I don't know what that something is. I had Alex Jones on my podcast, and I said, what if the Great Reset people are right? The planet is on the verge of collapse, and they need to take dramatic action to prevent us from essentially being like a yeast in a bottle, eating all the sugar and farting ourselves to death. And Alex said it's a good question that he struggles with himself. It really is a great philosophical conundrum. What if they're right? What if they're wrong? And who do you trust? It seems like most people aren't going to trust the authoritarian politicians who defy their own restrictions. And I think for good reason. You tell me the planet is in decay and on fire, and then you own multiple mansions on the beachfront and you fly in planes. I'm sorry. I have no reason to believe that you're being honest. But I've personally seen things that freak me out. I've seen the jellyfish fisheries. Have you seen this? The jellyfish taking over areas because the fisheries are collapsing. I've actually gone to California and seen one of these areas devastated by desalination, where the brine was being pumped down into the water and it was purging basically the bottom of the food chain. These are serious, serious problems. They think the way to solve the problem is to lie to you and not tell you the truth. Maybe. They think the issue is there are grifters who would lie and manipulate you into not believing it's true. Well, I blame them for being hypocrites and for not putting their money where their mouth is. I blame the elites who would buy beachfront property while claiming the water is going to rise and wipe the property out. Certainly, you don't care if that's true. People like Newsom and Whitmer and Lori Lightfoot and Nancy Pelosi who say COVID lockdown and then defy the COVID lockdowns. So what do? Actions speak louder than words. If they won't lead by example, then why will people trust them? The only response they have, I guess, is rules for thee, but not for me. You see, I think what's really happening is these people truly believe the world is in jeopardy. I think we have serious problems on this planet. I wonder why they're not calling out China, by the way, or India, or at least enough. And I think what it really is that these global elites, these individuals, these multimillionaires and billionaires, they want to live lives of luxury. There are threats to this planet. Overpopulation, to a certain degree, overpopulation is a problem. The problem isn't so much about livable land. It's about the consumption of resources, fossil fuels, namely. I think many of these elites are concerned that we could deplete fossil fuels and then they would have to live like peasants. So here's the compromise. Cut everybody off now, and then you get to live in luxury, thus creating a permanent upper class and a permanent lower class. I'm not a fan. These people are insane. The media is addicted to Trump. They won't give it up, and they're going to try and crush your ideas thinking that it will solve some problems. It won't. It never will. The technology exists. They'll try. They'll try and shut it all down. But hackers exist. Now, one thing I think they've done remarkably well is co-opting hackers. Finally convincing them to support the state has been truly, truly impressive. Some of the people who used to hang out with some of the most notorious far-right hackers have been desperate to separate themselves because photos exist of them hanging out. And so they'll try and do whatever it takes. That means supporting the state and the establishment and the war machine because they don't want to be ostracized. But the ability to understand, break down, and analyze systems and recalibrate them for different use will never go away. And that means so long as technology has progressed to the point where we have rapid communication, you cannot silence ideas. You can maybe slow them. You can kick them off your platforms, but people won't forget them. They'll hold them. They'll talk in private. Maybe getting rid of bars slowed these things down and tried to curtail these ideas. But if you think Trump was the cause of right-wing populism or nationalism, you are wrong. And there's nothing you can do to stop it. Perhaps you need to have a calm and rational discussion to figure out the best way forward so that people can compromise. And then maybe in 100 years and 200 years, we'll have worked towards a better future that we can each respect. Right now, they're saying no compromise. Let's talk about that. In my next video, let's talk about the attempts to expel Republicans, the 14th Amendment, and how serious this is going to get. The next segment will be at 4 p.m. over at youtube.com/Timcast. It's a different channel from this one. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you all then.